The autumn wind swept across the valley, carrying whispers of a story that had haunted this corner of Colorado for decades. Pine needles rustled underfoot as Olivia Parker made her way along the familiar trail, her fingers tracing the worn edges of a photograph she'd carried for 32 years. The image showed 5 young men in military uniforms, arms linked, smiles bright against the backdrop of Fort Carson's training grounds. One face, third from the left, bore her brother's unmistakable grin. "Where are you watching from today?" Olivia asked quietly, as if addressing someone beyond the screen. "Perhaps somewhere near these very mountains that took my brother and his fellow soldiers all those years ago." The disappearance of 5 infantrymen from the 4th Infantry Division in 1991 had become something of a local legend in this part of Colorado. Not quite forgotten, but gradually fading into the kind of story told around campfires. A mystery without resolution, a wound that never properly healed. Olivia had been just 19 when her older brother Daniel vanished along with 4 other soldiers during what should have been a routine training exercise in the Colorado Rockies. The official report stated they had separated from their unit during unexpected severe weather conditions. The search operation lasted 3 weeks. Helicopters, search dogs, experienced mountain rescue teams all came back empty-handed. Eventually, the military classified them as missing, presumed dead due to exposure. But something about that explanation had never sat right with Olivia. The kitchen in Olivia's cabin was warm, the scent of pine-scented candles mingling with brewing coffee. Outside, the mountains loomed, snow already capping the highest peaks, despite it being only mid-September. She spread old newspaper clippings across her wooden table, a ritual she performed every year on the anniversary of the disappearance. The headlines told fragments of the story. 5 soldiers missing in mountain training exercise. Search continues for missing infantrymen. Military abandons search for lost soldiers. And finally, families seek answers as case goes cold. Olivia had recently retired from her position as a high school librarian and had moved permanently to her family's old cabin near Grand Junction, closer to where it happened, closer to Daniel somehow. The phone rang, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Michael, her nephew, Daniel's son, who had been just 2 years old when his father vanished. "Hey, Aunt Liv, just checking in. I know what day it is." "I'm fine, Michael. Just going through the old articles again. Mom says you should stop torturing yourself. It's been over 30 years. Olivia sighed. Her sister-in-law had remarried after 7 years, trying to move forward. "It's not torture. It's remembering." After the call ended, Olivia returned to her clippings. Something caught her eye, something she'd never noticed before. In one of the photographs accompanying an article dated 3 weeks after the disappearance, a military officer was being interviewed. Behind him, partially visible on a map, were markings she hadn't noticed before, circles in locations that didn't match the official search areas described in the reports. Her heart quickened. After all these years, could she have missed something? The next morning found Olivia at the small local library, scrolling through microfiche records of local newspapers from 1991. The librarian, Ellen, had been a friend for years and understood Olivia's perpetual search for answers. "Found anything new?" Ellen asked, placing a cup of tea beside her. "Maybe. There were search areas they never disclosed to the families. I'm trying to find more detailed maps from the coverage." 3 hours and dozens of newspaper issues later, Olivia found what she was looking for, a clearer image of that same map. The undisclosed search areas were focused on a region about 15 miles northwest of where the soldiers were officially reported to have gone missing. Why would they search there if they believed the men had been caught in a storm where they'd last been seen? As Olivia drove back to her cabin, the radio crackled with the local news. She was about to switch it off when a name caught her attention. Hunter Preston Reeves reports finding military artifacts on Blacktail Ridge. The items have been turned over to authorities who are investigating their origin. Blacktail Ridge. That was within the unmarked search area on the map. Olivia's hands tightened on the steering wheel as she made a sharp turn, heading toward the local ranger station instead of home. The coincidence was too perfect to ignore. After 32 years of nothing, 2 potential leads had emerged within 24 hours. As the mountains cast long shadows across the valley, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced in decades, the flicker of hope, dangerous and warm, awakening within her chest. Perhaps the mountains that had kept their secret for so long were finally ready to speak. The ranger station was quiet when Olivia arrived, save for the gentle hum of a coffee maker and the occasional crackle of a radio. Ranger Scott Harmon looked up from his computer, recognition dawning on his weathered face. "Olivia Parker, been a while since you've stopped by." Scott had been a junior ranger when Daniel disappeared. He'd participated in the search operation as a local guide, and over the years he'd been kind enough to alert Olivia whenever hikers reported anything unusual in the backcountry. "I heard the news about a hunter finding military items on Blacktail Ridge," Olivia said, bypassing pleasantries. "I need to know what they found." Scott's expression softened. "I figured you'd be coming by. Preston Reeves, local guy, experienced hunter, found 2 military helmets half buried in a rockslide area. Old ones, Vietnam-era style. M1 helmets," Olivia said quietly. "That's what Daniel's unit was wearing for that exercise. They were testing old equipment in mountain conditions." Scott nodded. "The strange thing is, they had markings on them. Not standard military markings. Something else. Looked like someone had used a knife to scratch symbols into the metal." Olivia's pulse quickened. "Can I see them?" "They've already been sent to the county sheriff's office. But," he turned his computer monitor toward her, "I took photos." The image showed 2 dirty, moss-covered helmets. Even through the grime, Olivia could make out the strange markings etched into the metal. Not random scratches, but deliberate patterns. Lines, circles, and what appeared to be numbers, arranged in no system she recognized. Where exactly did he find these? Scott pulled up a topographical map on his computer. "Right here, about 7 miles northwest of Eagle Peak. Rough terrain, a natural funnel between 2 ridge lines that creates a sort of hidden valley. Not many people go through there." Olivia stared at the location. It was within the unmarked search area she'd noticed on the old map. "Scott, did they ever tell you why they were searching this area back then? It's nowhere near where the soldiers were reported missing." A shadow crossed his face. "No, they didn't. The military coordinators just gave us grid references. But I remember thinking it was odd at the time." That evening, Olivia sat on her porch, watching darkness settle over the mountains. The photos Scott had given her were spread across her lap, close-ups of the strange markings. They seemed both random and intentional, like a code or a message. The etchings were crude but precise, clearly made with purpose. Her phone rang. Michael again. "Aunt Liv, Mom told me you're chasing ghosts again." Olivia sighed. "It's not ghosts, Michael. It's evidence. Someone found 2 military helmets that might have belonged to your father's unit." A pause. "After 30 years? That seems unlikely. I know how it sounds, but they were found in an area the military searched but never told us about. And there are markings on them, symbols, numbers, like they were trying to leave a message." Another long pause. "Aunt Liv, I've been talking to Mom about this. We think maybe it's time for you to talk to someone. Professionally, I mean. This obsession, it's not an obsession when there's new evidence," Olivia cut in, her voice sharper than intended. "Michael, I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm just telling you what I found." After the call ended, Olivia returned to the photographs. The symbols bothered her. They seemed almost familiar. One sequence in particular, 19-4-1-25-5. Something about it tugged at her memory. The next morning, Olivia drove to the county sheriff's office in Grand Junction. The receptionist directed her to Detective Marcus Reyes, who was handling the case of the found helmets. "Ms. Parker," Detective Reyes greeted her, "I had a feeling you might come by. Ranger Harmon mentioned you'd stopped at the station." Detective Reyes was in his 40s, with kind eyes that had seen too much and a demeanor that suggested he took his job seriously. His office was neat, with case files stacked in orderly piles and a board covered with maps of the county. "I need to see those helmets," Olivia said. "I understand your brother was one of the soldiers who disappeared in 91, Reyes said. "I'm sorry for your loss." "They were never declared dead," Olivia corrected automatically. "Just missing." Reyes nodded. "The helmets are being processed as evidence, but I can show you clearer photographs than what Ranger Harmon took." He laid several high-resolution images on his desk. The helmets had been cleaned, making the etched markings stand out starkly against the green metal. One helmet had what appeared to be a series of coordinates, while the other contained the sequence that had nagged at Olivia, 19 to 4, 1, 25 to 5. "Have you figured out what these mean?" she asked. "The first set appears to be coordinates, though they don't match any standard mapping system we've tried. As for the number sequence, we're still working on it." Olivia stared at the numbers, 19, 4, 1, 25, 5. Then it hit her, a memory from childhood. She and Daniel used to send coded messages to each other using a simple substitution cipher, A1, B2, and so on. "It's letters," she whispered. "Numbers standing for letters of the alphabet. 19 is S, 4 is D, 1 is A, 25 is Y, 5 is E." Detective Reyes looked at her with newfound interest. "SDAYE? That doesn't make sense." Olivia rearranged the letters in her mind. "Or maybe SAYED. Stayed. They stayed somewhere." A chill ran through her as the implication set in. Stayed, not died. Could this be a message from Daniel or one of the other soldiers? "Detective, I need to go to where these were found. Today." Reyes shook his head. "That's not possible. It's restricted now that it's an active investigation site." "Then you need to come with me," Olivia insisted. "These coordinates, what if they're pointing to another location? What if there's more evidence?" Reyes studied her for a long moment. "Ms. Parker, I understand this is personal for you, but we need to be methodical. We've already sent the coordinates to military experts to decode." "It could take them weeks," Olivia argued. "I've waited 32 years already." As she left the sheriff's office, Olivia felt a familiar determination hardening within her. The mountains had kept their secret for decades, but now they had offered a clue, a whisper of possibility that the official story might not be the whole truth. She knew exactly what she had to do next, with or without official permission. Dawn broke over the Colorado mountains in a wash of pink and gold as Olivia loaded her hiking backpack. She had spent the night working through the possible meaning of the coordinates on the helmet. If they weren't standard mapping coordinates, what else could they be? Then she remembered something else from her childhood. The topographical maps Daniel had been obsessed with before joining the military. He had taught her a different coordinate system, one used by some geologists and mining surveyors in this part of Colorado. It was outdated even then, but Daniel had been fascinated by its precision for documenting locations in mountain terrain. When she applied this old system to the scratch numbers, they pointed to a location approximately 3 miles east of where the helmets had been found. A remote box canyon, not far from an abandoned mining operation. She knew it was reckless to go alone, but she also knew that bureaucracy would delay any official expedition. As she started her hike, the morning mist still clung to the valleys, making the landscape look otherworldly. The trail quickly disappeared, forcing her to navigate by compass and the GPS unit she'd programmed with the converted coordinates. The terrain grew increasingly difficult, loose scree, dense underbrush, and fallen trees blocking natural pathways. By midday her legs ached and her hands were scratched from pushing through thickets, but something drove her forward, a sense of proximity to a truth long concealed. Her phone had lost signal hours ago. She was truly alone with the mountains now, just as Daniel and his fellow soldiers had been. What had they experienced in these remote reaches? What had driven them to scratch desperate messages into their helmets? The sun was directly overhead when she reached the small canyon indicated by the coordinates. It was unremarkable at first glance. a narrow cut between two steep rock faces, with a small stream trickling down its center. Years of rock slides had changed the landscape, but the basic geology remained. Olivia stood at the entrance, catching her breath, when something caught her eye, a flash of unnatural color among the grey and brown rocks. She made her way carefully toward it and discovered a piece of faded olive-green fabric snagged on a jagged rock. Military canvas, weathered by decades of exposure, but still recognizable. Her heart pounding, Olivia began to search more systematically. Near the back of the canyon, partly obscured by fallen rocks and overgrown with mountain vegetation, she found what appeared to be the collapsed entrance to a small cave, or mine shaft. This had to be it. She took photos with her phone, documenting everything before attempting to clear some of the smaller rocks. As she worked, more evidence emerged. A rusted canteen, a rotted boot, fragments of what might have been a backpack. After 30 minutes of clearing debris, she had exposed enough of the opening to see that it extended deep into the mountainside. The air flowing out was cool and damp. She shone her flashlight into the darkness, revealing a narrow tunnel that had partially collapsed but still offered passage. Olivia hesitated. She should go back, bring the authorities. This was beyond what she had prepared for, but the thought of waiting even one more day after all these years was unbearable. She squeezed through the narrow opening, careful not to dislodge any loose rocks. The tunnel widened after a few feet, revealing what appeared to be an old mining shaft that had been modified. There were remnants of wooden supports, some newer than others, and clear signs that someone had worked to maintain the structure. About 50 feet in, the tunnel opened into a small chamber. Olivia's flashlight beam revealed something that stopped her breath, a makeshift living space. Rotted sleeping bags lay on crude wooden platforms. A stone circle contained the remnants of a fire pit. Metal boxes, military issue, were stacked against one wall, and on the rough rock wall itself, scratched markings similar to those on the helmets covered the surface. This was no temporary shelter. People had lived here, perhaps for an extended period. With trembling hands, Olivia approached one of the metal boxes. The lock had long since rusted through, and the lid came away with a brittle crack when she pulled. Inside were notebooks, their pages yellow and fragile with age and dampness, but still legible. The first one she opened contained a date at the top of the first page, November 17th, 1991, 2 months after the disappearance. The handwriting was cramped but clear. "We've been here 73 days. Radio's still dead. Jay's leg infection is better, but we're running low on meds. The tunnel to the south collapsed in yesterday's tremor. We're now officially trapped. Decision made to send F and R out with the coded helmets. The rest of us will wait. If no rescue in 30 days, we'll try the north tunnel." Olivia's vision blurred with tears. They had survived the initial disappearance. They had found shelter. They had lived, at least for a time. As she leafed through more pages, the story emerged in fragments. The 5 soldiers had become separated from their unit during a severe storm, as the official report stated. But they had then encountered something unexpected, an unmarked mining complex that didn't appear on their maps. While exploring it for shelter, a tunnel collapse had trapped them inside. They had survived on emergency rations, cave water, and eventually by hunting small animals that entered the more accessible parts of the mine. They had systematically explored the tunnel network, looking for a way out. 2 of them, F and R in the journal, likely Frank Thompson and Robert Calloway from Daniel's unit, had eventually found a promising route and had left with the coded helmets, hoping to reach help. The last entry was dated February 8, 1992, nearly 5 months after the disappearance. "D very weak now, infection spreading. K and I will make final attempt through North Tunnel tomorrow. Left supplies for D here. If anyone finds this, tell our families we tried. Coordinates to our location on helmet number 1. We stayed alive as long as we could. D. Daniel, her brother." The sound of voices and footsteps jerked Olivia back to the present. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness of the tunnel. "Miss Parker, are you in here?" Detective Reyes's voice echoed against the stone walls. "Here," she called, her voice breaking. "I'm here!" And they were here too. Detective Reyes emerged into the chamber, followed by two other officers, and surprisingly Michael. The detective took in the scene with wide eyes. "How did you find me?" Olivia asked. "Your nephew reported you missing when you didn't answer his calls," Reyes explained, "and Ranger Harmon guessed where you might have gone. We've been tracking you for hours." Michael stepped forward, his face pale as he looked around the chamber. "Aunt Liv, what is this place?" "It's where they sheltered," she said quietly, handing him the journal. "Your father and the others. They survived for months. They were trying to find a way out." In the days that followed, a full investigation transformed the remote canyon into a buzzing center of activity. Military personnel, forensic experts, and geologists carefully excavated the mine shaft and its chambers. 3 sets of remains were eventually recovered, including Daniel's, identified through dental records and DNA testing. The story that emerged confirmed what Olivia had discovered. The soldiers had survived the initial disappearance, but had become trapped in the abandoned mine. 2 had attempted to get help, but had perished in the mountains. Their remains were never found, though their helmets had finally delivered their message decades too late. The other 3, including Daniel, had died in the mine, likely from injuries, infection, and eventual starvation. A month later, Olivia stood with Michael at a proper military funeral, watching as Daniel's remains were finally laid to rest with full honors. The mystery that had consumed her life for 32 years had been solved, though not in the way she had hoped. "You never gave up on him," Michael said quietly as they walked away from the grave. "All these years." "He never gave up either," Olivia replied. "They all kept trying to the very end." That evening, as the sun set over the Colorado mountains that had kept their secret for so long, Olivia sat on her porch one last time. She had decided to sell the cabin. It was time to move forward, now that the past had finally been laid to rest. The mystery of the vanished infantrymen had been solved, but it had revealed a story of courage and perseverance that deserved to be remembered. Not as a tragedy, but as a testament to the human spirit, to the lengths people will go to survive, to the bonds that keep them fighting, and to the messages they leave behind, hoping someone will find them even after they're gone. If you found this story touching, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. There's another video appearing on your screen right now that I think you'll find just as compelling. Until next time, remember that some mysteries are waiting to be solved, and some truths are waiting to be found, even after decades of silence.